This episode of Rick and Rick Rule the World is brought to you by Taskin, the first name in premium quality travel gear. At Taskin, the holidays are now ready for takeoff with slim, stylish gear like the Taskin Edge professional laptop backpack for business and travel. Order now at TaskinSF.com. Next up on an all-new Rick and Rick.
Fire up the lightsabers and prepare for the jump to light speed.
It's time for the official Rick and Rick review of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker.
That's right, all the swashbuckling action, all the kick-ass special effects, all the franchise callbacks and Easter eggs.
As we watch the curtain fall on the 9-movie, 42-year Skywalker saga marking the end of a cinematic era.
And it all starts right here, right now.
On the one show where everybody loves Babu Rick.
And everybody rules the world.
Hi everybody, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and may the Force be with you. Welcome to a special edition of Rick and Rick Rule the World. I'm Rick Matheson, and I am joined, as always, by the Boba to my Fett, the Obi-Wan to my Kenobi, the Jar Jar to my Binks, Rick Wooten. How the heck are you?
I'm great, man. I'm excited to talk about this movie.
I know,
This is something
right?
that you and I have been talking about for at least a year now.
Yes, God, it's so hard to believe. So we are here to give everybody our official Rick and Rick review of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. I saw it last night. I feel like I've got as many questions for you, Rick, as comments on this particular installment, this final episode of the Skywalker saga. One, it struck me, Rick. I want to get your feedback on this because I felt this last night when I saw the movie. The opening we see a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yes.
It's got kind of a whole new meaning for you and me and all of Generation X. I mean, we're talking about a movie storyline that literally dates back to our early childhoods. We were the first children to wage lightsaber battles and collect Star Wars action figures when we could get them and dream of flying in X-Wing fighters and the Millennium Falcon and all of that stuff. What did you feel when you saw those words?
You know, I think I've told you this before. I have seen every movie in the series in the theater, going all the way back to the 1977 movie where my dad took me to see it. And so for me, it's kind of a bit of nostalgia, a bit of like belonging at the movie when I saw it. And in fact, I've carried that tradition forward. And I think I've taken my kids to my two boys to every one of the movies that have come out in their lifetime, kind of, to continue to pay homage to that. So, for me, I won't say it's a religious kind of thing, but, it's definitely something that has been a big part of my life through most of my life.
Yeah, me too. I have also seen each of the movies in theater. I had to beg my brother to take me when the first one came out. He begrudgingly came with me and then ended up loving it like everybody else. The movie came out on May 25th. 1977. People really can't appreciate that this was it wasn't exactly the first summer movie, but it was the first mega hit one anyway, a phenomenon.
Yeah, and I think that people also forget that people didn't take science fiction or space movies serious
Yeah.
really until this movie came out. And, this movie laid the groundwork for, other science fiction like critical movies like Blade Runner years later.
Right.
And this was definitely something different at the time. It wasn't campy, it wasn't silly, it wasn't made for children. This was like a real story, which was something different.
At that time, a lot of the science fiction of that day prior to Star Wars was dystopian. If it was a grown-up movie, it was dystopian. Even George Lucas had that. I think his first movie out of grad school was THX 1000 or whatever the sound system that we all see now. Well, people might not realize that was the name of his first movie. And it was dystopian. And I read recently that it was a flop. And his wife said, why don't you do something fun? Makes people laugh or cry. And that's when he did American Graffiti. And that was a hit. And then he really plumbed the depths of his childhood and put together the movie that recalls Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers and all of that.
Exactly.
And it was a phenomenon.
So THX 1138 came out in 1971, and to your point, I mean, it was definitely that dystopia that we actually saw continue for quite a while. I mean, movies all the way up to 1984, and things like that. And so again, that kind of comes back 6 years later. he puts out Star Wars, and Star Wars wasn't that dire, it wasn't that dark. It was
It's totally
almost
fine.
uplifting, and it had just a different tempo and story to it.
There was a book. It came in 1978, so roughly a year after the movie came out, and it was called Star Wars Splinter of the Mind's Eye. What I didn't know, I remember the cover distinctly, but what I didn't know is that it was actually developed to be the sequel to Star Wars. It was going to be a
Yeah.
low budget movie sequel if the original Star Wars wasn't a big success, because they did not think it. No one thought it was going to be a big success. 20th Century Fox thought it was just going to be a total flop. And so they had developed this. I mean, it was to the point where the story had to have existing characters and existing props that could be reused. And apparently he opened the book with a fight in space, and they said, just cut that out. We're not going to be able, probably not going to be able to afford to do another shootout in space. But little did they know that movie was never going to get made, because Star
Yeah.
Wars was such a huge hit.
Yeah, I was just looking through right now. So other popular sci-fi movies in the 1970s: Silent Running, which again is
Pretty dark.
kind of darker. Soylent Green,
Totally
the
dark.
original Aliens, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Westworld, Solaris. All the Andromeda Strain. All these movies were much much darker, right?
Yeah.
Logan's Run. It is interesting to see how different this movie was, and how much this kind of I mean, how many movies, 42 years, how many movies can have such not only a long run, James Bond, but
Yeah.
how it can have a long run but have such a cultural impact. I
Yeah.
mean, just we just saw this movie, and it blew me away at how many people came to the theater dressed up, how much of the Christmas sales are all pivoting around things that are related to this movie. It's absolutely amazing.
Yes. Yeah, no, it is crazy. There has really never been anything close to this. What I did read, just because you made me think about it, is nobody thought to do, I guess, Baby Yoda toys. They purposefully decided not to do that because they wanted it to be a surprise from the show The Mandalorian. And I don't know if there's a Babu Frick doll yet. So that might be next year's big seller. Next topic here is box office. So this is the ninth installment of this franchise. And I guess it
Yeah.
raked in $176 million in theaters over its opening weekend, and I guess another $374 million globally. Now, I guess Disney nailed it. They said that they projected $165 million opening domestic, and it did better than that. But I guess other analysts had forecast 200 million. So it was kind of seen as a disappointment. I guess just because the last two movies, like 2017's The Last Jedi opened with 220 million, and I guess the one before that, Force Awakens, came in at 248 million and ended up selling 2 billion globally, which I'm not sure I realized that. So it's down a little bit, but I have a feeling this one's going to have traction. It seemed like my audience really liked it, and
Right.
I really enjoyed it. I actually heard you in my head, because back, I want to say summer of 2018, we did our Comic-Con episode, and you said something very interesting in that, because I guess that was the first announcement about the movie. We said, hey, this is a lot to carry on J.J. Abrams' shoulders. Is he going to be able to do it? And you said no, because there's no way you're ever going to please Star Wars fans. The fan base is just too intense. You were right. There's no possible way to please everybody.
Yeah, I have to say I've been kind of disappointed with the critical evaluation of the movie. There's a lot of people who have spoken out against it. Now, some of them, I think it's popular to say negative things,
Yeah.
to be able to come out and say like, oh, this movie's crap. Let me give you all the reasons why. I mean, that's kind of a popular thing to do right now. It's kind of the trend in society. But beyond that, some of the folks that don't normally do that, I was a little disappointed in some of the reviews. When I went to see it, I didn't go in with like the highest expectation. I mean, we've talked about this before with other movies where the amount of pressure on this crew to deliver a movie is insane.
Yeah.
They're wrapping up 42 years of movies
Yeah.
where this is one of the most passionate fan bases ever, more so than, like we talked about this with Marvel, way more so than Marvel. I mean, it's just ridiculous, and for them to be able to pull off a good movie was next impossible.
Yeah.
And so I thought they did. I thought they actually, did good credit. And so I was a little disappointed in some of the critical reviews of it.
We have to take our first break here. When we come back, a deeper dive into Rise of Skywalker's storyline, overarching themes, and more. Hey, Rick and Rick Nation, don't forget to check out our website at rickandrick.com. It's double the Rick in just one click at rickandrick.com. And we are back. Rick and Rick rule the world in our official spoilerific review of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Let's take a bit to talk about storyline here. I should tell folks major spoilers here, so if you have not seen the movie yet, you do not want to listen to this until afterwards.
That's definitely big spoiler alerts.
Yeah. So there has been this galaxy-wide broadcast by Emperor Palpatine, who's supposed to be dead. He somehow is regenerated, and he has broadcasted that he's coming back and the Sith are going to take over or whatnot. And Kylo Ren has obtained this Sith Wayfinder device that leads him to the broadcast source on the planet Exegol. And there he finds Palpatine, and I guess his intention was just going to kill him. And he comes into this space, and it looked like they had created a bunch of clone Snokes. And so Emperor Palpatine, he said, I want you to come to the dark side, and if you do what I want, then I'm going to give you everything that you want. And apparently Palpatine's been building this ginormous armada of Star Destroyers, and all he wants Kylo to do is find and kill Rey. And Rey, she's being trained under General Leia. Meanwhile, Finn, Poe, and Chewbacca have information from this spy that's within the First Order who is confirming to them that, yes, Palpatine is alive. And that's where we take off here. This movie ends up, and I feel like, Rick, we talked about, chiasmus within a chiasmus within a chiasmus, exactly. the chiasmi. I felt like this attempted to do it more than I thought they would. There were a lot of callbacks in this movie, and the story beats of this one did echo. It wasn't just one, it was mostly around A New Hope, but they kind of touched on big points in all the movies in some way or another. I felt like it worked pretty well. There were a couple ones where I couldn't really remember. I was thinking, are they touching that? Call back to that. One that stands out is Luke. He has gone to find Rey. She's gone back to his planet. She's kind of given up because she has learned that senses that she is a Palpatine. And Luke visits her and essentially says, you're supposed to do this. You have a kind of a destiny here. You are a Jedi. She has no way to get off the planet, but all of a sudden she looks and there's an X-Wing fighter, Luke's old X-Wing fighter, coming out of the water. That one stood out to me because I seem to remember I want to say the second movie, he couldn't do that. Yoda had to lift it up for him.
Now, there was two things I noticed in this. You're absolutely right. There was the callback to, the X-Wing coming out of the water. And you're right. Yoda kept telling him, you're what's holding you back. You can do this. And he's like, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. And he gives up. And Yoda pulls it out. So there was actually that callback. But the other thing I thought was interesting is, unless I'm mistaken, that was the first time we'd ever seen one of the existential Jedi, impact the world around him. And Luke actually pulled the X-Wing, which he couldn't do in the second movie. He actually pulled it out of the water, but he was transcended at that point, which we've never seen any of the transcended Jedis be able to affect the world around them.
Kylo Ren and Rey have this sort of psychic bond that we've seen in the earlier movies, where they can actually kind of inhabit each other's sort of mental space. He is trying to tempt her to come over to the dark side, like Skywalkers tend to do, and she's tempted, but it's not for the reason that he thinks. And she has this battle with him, and Leia senses that this is going on and kind of does what Luke did in the last movie, kind of projects out to him, giving up her life to try to impact his soul, essentially. And he feels her, and he sees a manifestation of Han Solo, who kind of talks to him, and essentially he comes to realize that he's not going to be the evil thing that he's, thinks he's going to be, that there is good in him and there's a way to redeem himself. And that kind of sets the trajectory of Rey going after Palpatine. Now, talking about that story thread, Rick, I want to get your opinion on this because there were a couple things in that arc that were a little odd to me. So she goes after Palpatine and
Yeah.
has this final confrontation, but he tells her, yeah, I wanted you to come here because I want you to kill me because I have all the Siths in me who have ever lived. And once you kill me, I'm going to inhabit you. It was almost like
That's right.
the master from the strain. And so she's like, shoot, I can't kill him. But she ends up killing him and isn't the Sith. So was it that she deflected his own lightning back at him that he was killed safely without it infecting her?
I wondered this as well. I pondered this quite a bit after the movie because to your point, inevitably she does kill him.
Yeah.
And so one would assume that if you kill him, that therefore, that quote unquote releases all the Siths and they basically inhabit her body.
Yeah.
But I think the point that the movie was trying to make is if she kills him out of anger and hatred, then she basically becomes a Sith. If she, ends up killing him out of good, then she goes to the light side. So, the whole point of that scene, my understanding, is that was the pivot where she's choosing, does she go towards the Jedi or does she go towards the Sith?
Mm-hmm.
And killing him doesn't negate which choice she's making. It's just, the pivot point at which that decision is being made. And so, yeah, I mean, you could see that she ended up killing him, but my take on that wasn't as much that she was reflecting back his power as she was channeling all the power of the Jedis
Right.
at him, which was deflecting his power, but then it overcame his power, and she basically just eradicated him. And so it wasn't that she killed him, she just basically destroyed all of the evil.
Yeah.
And did that with the good of the Jedi. And that's kind of that, the scorched earth kind of scene that you saw there towards the end.
That makes good sense. She was hopeless before that. He had kind of thrown
Right.
her down on the ground and apparently had killed Kylo Ren. And she had that moment where she was saying, be with me to the other Jedis. And
Right.
then when she got up to stop him, she still didn't really have that hope yet. It was almost just force of will. And then Kylo Ren, them pulling the trick where she got his lightsabers, kind of was like she realized, I am a Jedi and I'm going to do this. And it was kind of like hope came back to her.
That's right.
And
That's
she was
right.
able to defeat him. Now, one thing though, at the beginning of the movie, Palpatine told Kylo Ren to go kill her. So how, if he had killed her, then he wouldn't have been able to take over her body. So there was kind of a disconnect there. Unless for some reason it was all just chess and he knew they were all going to end up on his doorstep.
Yeah, I wondered this as well. And I mean, you could take this two different directions. First one is if Kylo Ren was actually able to kill Rey, then he would become, whatever you want to call it, the Alpha. And therefore, if he killed Palpatine, then he would be consumed by the Sith energy. You could assume that the Master was so ability to see so much in Chen chess moves ahead that he then could figure out that there was no way he would be able to do it. So therefore, he knew that would bring Rey there, and that's why he chose to go that way. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving Palpatine too much credit in that second one, but I mean, it really could be either one. And in the movie itself, they didn't really give you the answer. In fact, there was lots of things they didn't give you an answer to, like how exactly Palpatine came back, right?
Yes.
I mean, they referred to the fact that that it's one of the powers of the Sith is to cheat death. I mean, it was referred to in a previous movie, right?
Yeah.
But what the heck does that mean? And how did that happen? Because that was kind of bizarre. And it's almost like you referenced a vampire movie earlier, a vampire TV show, but it's almost like that where when you saw Palpatine, you can see he was recovering from death. He was struggling to come back from it. He hadn't regained his full strength until he absorbed the power of Kylo Ren and Rey. And so it was interesting to kind of see that, and it just didn't give me the satisfaction of knowing what was going on. And to your point, you had this whole audience of clones? Why wasn't he absorbing power from, like, anyways, it was kind of interesting. I'm sure there's more to it, and obviously couldn't fit into the movie.
The clones, you're right. There was like how many thousands of them, and they just all stood in the
Totally,
audience while this fight's going on. They didn't do
totally.
anything to help.
And before we move off the scene, let me point something out that I thought it was interesting. I looked it up and I figured out where it came from. There's the scene where Kylo Ren actually heals her, and there was a previous scene
Yes.
where she healed the sandworm, right?
Yes.
And those scene actually she heals Kylo Ren as well
Yes.
after she
Yes.
stabs him with a lightsaber. And so it was kind of interesting that, like, that was an ability that we've never seen from the Jedi before, except we had. And this was really interesting. 2 days before the movie came out, the latest episode of The Mandalorian came out with Baby Yoda, and Baby Yoda used that power in that TV show. So they actually pre-released that TV show so that it wouldn't be the first time you saw it in the movie.
Interesting.
And so it was interesting to see, that power. Some of these powers we hadn't seen before kind of emerge, and and just kind of to that point, when we saw Luke being able to, communicate across the cosmos to project his
Yeah.
his vision, it's what killed him,
Right.
right? And when we saw Leia do it, it's what killed her.
Right.
However, we can see Rey and Kylo Ren do this with each other regularly with no impact. And
Yes.
it's kind of interesting to see that kind of paradox between, what these older Jedis can't really do, but here's these two people who are fused, and the Emperor makes some reference to the
Yeah.
fact that they have
Diode or
a
something.
exactly, they have a special bond that is, very rare, because that same ability with two other people, pretty much will kill one of them, which is pretty fascinating.
In that scene, we kind of revisited the whole first Chiasmus
Right.
and had a Skywalker on the dark side redeem himself at the last moment and save the Jedi who's trying to stop the evil Emperor. So
Right.
once again, we saw that kind of repeat itself.
I'll point out one other Easter egg, and that's in the opening crawl. You mentioned the opening crawl earlier. There was a piece in there about, they could hear, some sort of a message, a sinister voice of the late Empire Palpatine. And it's kind of funny where I only saw this online. I think I saw it on the week. And it was actually a reference to the Star Wars content in the video game Fortnite, of all things,
No way.
which was kind of interesting. So yeah, so we've got them kind of like doing crossovers with Fortnite. They're doing crossovers with the Mandalorian. I mean, it was interesting how they tied so many of these properties together in this movie.
Well, yeah. So when Rey was having that be with me moment where she was calling on the Jedi's, the
Right.
voices that you heard, what I had read, because I haven't seen some of these, were characters from the animated series. And I'd heard some video game, but I didn't know it was Fortnite. It totally tied together the whole universe and made everything canon. There was this whole thing about Poe and Finn being attracted to one another. And I guess there's this whole fan base that wants them to be together, I guess. Probably disappointed in the movie. But the thing that struck me in this is we're in the last episode, and it seemed like they went above and beyond to make it super clear that they were very much heterosexual. And I thought
Yeah.
that was kind of like, okay, I didn't care either way, but it seems like you're
Right.
really trying hard to make it clear that they're not. And I wondered why.
Well, J.J. Abrams had, I think, made some commitment that there would be, some sort of representation of LGBT
Right.
in the movie, and there was. If you remember, when people were returning, there was couples that came together that were same sex,
Right.
and so that was that. And in fact, J.J. Abrams actually came out just after the movie, because if you remember, there was the recurring theme through the movie where Finn kept saying, Rey, I want to tell you something, right?
Yes, I want to
They'd
ask you.
almost die here. And so a lot of people interpreted that to be that he was going to convey his feelings to her.
Right.
And J.J. Abrams, in a press conference afterwards, said, no, that's not it at all. It's that he was saying that he could feel her force,
Right.
and that he was force sensitive.
Right.
And that was all about, basically showing that more people were now sensitive to this, and he could feel the force from her.
Yeah.
And there's the scene where he's like, I think he makes a comment about, I know she's there, I can feel her.
Right. But I also kind of felt like, why do we have to explain everybody's sexuality?
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to the Catherine Kennedy thing, where she got a lot of flack after the last movie for politicizing the last movie too much, or pushing for that to be. And I think that this movie kind of returned back to the fan base, and instead of trying to make a movie where it addresses everybody's comments, everybody's feedback, everybody's political needs, they really just focused on what they felt would be fan service, but then kind of carried through with a few things.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know that it works. I don't know that it doesn't work. I won't make a judgment there. I feel like some of this is just normal, and it's kind of a reflection of the times, just like every other movie has.
Yeah.
And I actually was very happy with how a lot of these things worked into the movie without making the movie about that. And so the movie was about the story, which I thought was fantastic.
They kind of all have felt a little bit political to me, but I felt like this one had some of that same kind of spirit that Jen Erso's character had in Rogue One. That sort of rallying speech that she gave in that movie was very much for a resistance. And here we had a couple of instances where we saw, it was Poe's former girlfriend, she said they win by making you think you're alone. Several characters said something to the effect of, they want you to feel like you're alone. Poe said, we're not alone. Good people will fight if we lead them. And Rey said something like, the First Order wins by making you think you're alone. And I felt like, that was kind of a good message. It was, someone in the movie said something like that famous saying of, evil succeeds when good people do nothing. And and there was very much that thread in this. And boy, this was it. This was all game over. And you saw Poe lose faith a couple of times. And then to have Lando Calrissian arrive with the giant posse, which was a throwback to Empire Strikes Back, if I remember correctly. And the first movie, also Rey's lack of faith, where she lost her faith for a moment and then kind of regained it. There were several instances in this where it was very much about, you just can't give in. You can't lose hope. You've got to go forward. And that part I really, really like. I hate the name First Order. I keep thinking it's a boy band, but the Empire and the New Order or whatever, they always have a single point of failure in whatever they construct.
Exactly.
Those were at least modulated, but it was the tower and they were able to switch it to another tower. But I kept thinking, and you couldn't make all of them be these towers?
Exactly. It's like the worst IT scenario where there's a single point of failure. It's
Yes.
like there's one Ethernet cord coming into the entire building, and if anybody cuts that, we're hosed.
Right.
Yeah, no, I thought that was pretty funny too. And to your point, like all these, there's recurring themes that have happened through many of these movies, right? So you see Han Solo sacrifice himself so that Luke Skywalker could escape, and here you have Kylo Ren sacrificing himself so that Rey could continue on. I mean, you've got a lot of these same themes continue through it, and that's where the chiasmus comes in.
So let's start with final grades.
You go first.
Okay, so I've said it many times that I like Star Wars. I've never been a ginormous fan. It wasn't like I had to see all of them multiple times in the theater. And I felt like this was a very rewarding movie. I was entertained. I could remember parts of it. It almost didn't matter if you didn't remember all the way back. It was more of the sense of it. I feel like there was an investment in that original feel, what we felt those first movies that nobody was ever going to be able to quite get. You can't capture that lightning again because we aren't those children anymore. It was kind of like what I said at the top of the show. It's like Star Wars is imprinted in our limbic system at this point. It was a part of our childhoods, and but you couldn't go back to you could never get there again. But having them all together and kind of had that feel of the old days, nostalgia, and still I felt invested in characters. I thought that all of the characters were engaging, and so I was pleased. I was pleasantly surprised question, I would give this a solid B, maybe even approaching a B+. For all things that it was up against, I felt like it delivered. And for someone that's a fan, but not super fan, I felt like it was plenty of closure for me and wrapping this storyline up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you summed that up really well. I'm a fan. I'm a little more of a fan than you, but I'm not a super fan. I will see all the movies 100%, and I'll probably see them more than once, maybe twice. But I'm not one of those ones that feels like I need to see it 10 times. I need to understand all the mythology involved in it and, do all the research. I'm not that person, but I recognizing how big of a challenge they went in with this one, trying to wrap up such I don't know, you can't say trilogy. I mean, this is the end of a trilogy, but it was the end of 3 trilogies, really.
Right. Yeah.
That's a huge task that is almost insurmountable. And so I give the cast, the crew, the writing, the directing, huge props. I think they actually did very well. But I land actually exactly where you do. I give it a solid B, approaching a B+.
All right, we do need to take a break, folks. And when we come back, it's time for Loaded Questions, the Star Wars edition. So don't go anywhere. Hey, Rick, check this out. It's the Taskin Edge business backpack I was telling you about.
Hey, that thing is seriously cool. Who's the target customer for that?
Well, it is not just for anybody. The Taskin Edge is designed for go-getters, the how do they do it's and the look at them goes. People who want an effortlessly cool, premium quality business backpack that's big on status, short on quo.
That's cool. It's really sharp without being too showy, smart without being too gimmicky. I really like it.
It's the perfect business backpack for people who carpa the hell out of every DM. And no, you can't carpa mine. Go carpa your own at taskinsf.com. And we are back. Rick and Rick rule the world here. Rick Matheson and Rick Wooten. And it's time for Loaded Questions, the Star Wars edition. Question number 1. The Millennium Falcon can comfortably fit how many people in its cockpit? A, 1 Wookiee, 4 Babu Friks, and 1 Poe Dameron. B, 2 Luke Skywalkers, 1 Poe Dameron, and 1 Han Solo. C, 1 Han Solo, 1 Wookiee, and 3 Poe Damerons. Or D, 4 R2-D2s, 3 C-3POs, 2 Hinnish Ewoks, and a Porg and a pear tree. The cockpit of the Millennium Falcon fits how many?
I'm gonna guess C.
The answer is B, 2 Luke Skywalkers, 1 Poe Dameron, and 1 Han Solo. So according to ohmy.disney.com, the Millennium Falcon comfortably fits 4 people in its cockpit. Okay, question number 2. Which of the following Rise of Skywalker actors have also been in a J.J. Abrams TV show? So it can be more than one answer. A, Kerry Russell, B, Dominic Monaghan, C, Greg Grunberg, or D, Billy Lord. Which of these have been in a TV show from J.J. Abrams?
Wow, I have no idea.
Okay, so the answer is A, B, and C. So Kerry Russell starred in Felicity, which I think was J.J. Abrams' first TV show that he was working on. Dominic Monaghan was on Lost, and Greg Grunberg was in Alias. Billy Lord, as far as I know, has not been in a J.J. Abrams movie. She is the daughter of Carrie Fisher, and she has been on 3 seasons of American Horror Story and a show called Scream Queens. Final question. R2-D2 is classified as what kind of droid? A, not the ones you're looking for. B, the Turbo XT-125 droid. C, an astromech droid. D, a protocol droid. Or E, a Polodroid 1-step. R2-D2 is classified as what kind of droid?
Wow, you're stumping me on these ones. Then I'm gonna go D.
Okay, I would have guessed that too. That is actually what C-3PO is. I distinctly remember him saying that. Yeah, in the first movie, it is C, the astromech droid.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not a huge Star Wars nerd. I love Star Wars. I always go see the movies, but this level of detail is beyond me.
For sure, me too. 42 years from now, when we're in our 44th season of Rick and Rick, and we're looking at new Star Wars movies, there'll be a whole bunch of other Star Wars trivia to guess at. That's going to wrap it up. Thank you, Rick Wooten. That was a great conversation. Enjoyed that quite a bit. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Be sure to come on back for the next episode of The One Show, where everybody's name is Rick.
And everybody rules the world.